Welcome to SACNAS Insights to Success webinar, and thank you for joining us. My name is Katerina, and I'm excited to introduce you to 3 extraordinary role models who will share their personal journeys in education and science today. At SACNAS, we believe in the power of sharing personal stories to both inspire and connect with each other. Especially now, you might be in need of some extra encouragement. And we want you to know that you are not alone. The SACNAS community is here for you. By listening to these stories, we hope you will feel motivated and recharged. Now, before we get started, a few things I wanted to mention. If you have any questions throughout the panel portion of this webinar, please submit them via the Q&A feature, and we will address them at the end. We are recording this webinar, so you will also have the chance to rewatch and share with your peers later. And if you have any additional questions that we don't get today, please stay to the end to see how you can continue the conversation in our SACNAS online community. So now let's get started. Let me briefly introduce our first panelist, Robin. Robin Lopez was born in Oakland and grew up in Richmond, California. He started his academic journey in Contra Costa College. Currently, Robin is pursuing a PhD in environmental science, policy and management at UC Berkeley. He is very active in community and serves as a mentor to many students both in his local community and SACNAS network. Diamond Tachera is Kanaka Ovi student who is pursuing a doctorate degree in hydrogeology at the University of Hawaii, Manoa. Diamond is deeply committed to supporting Native Hawaiian students pursuing STEM degrees through mentorship and sharing her personal experiences. And our last panelist is Jennifer Wong-Ala, is from Waimanalo, Oahu. She went to Kapilani Community College in Honolulu. Currently, Jennifer is an NSF Graduate Research Fellow at Oregon State University in the College of Ocean, Earth, and Atmospheric Sciences. She's very passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion in higher education. So now I would like to give the opportunity to our panelists to share their stories. Robin, would you like to go first?
Sure, thank you. First, it's a privilege to be engaged in these conversations, to continue what we had during the 2019 SACNAS Community College Day. I really enjoyed being on the panel with Jennifer and Diamond, and hopefully nuggets of information, more nuggets of information can be shared with the broader community. As you heard, my name is Robin D. Lopez. Been born and raised in the Bay Area all my life. I get the privilege of continuing to help protect and serve what is Ohlone territory in California. Much of my life work right now is not just science, but addressing science equity and science justice, and trying to understand science through the lens of people of color. Aside from that, my biggest ambitions in life right now, are my biggest goals. Being a scholar who's come from a community college, my hope is to one day teach at a community college. And I kind of get like weird smiles or looks of confusion when people ask me why am I doing my PhD, and my response is I want to be a community college professor, because that's not a typical response you hear. And my hope is that we normalize that people don't need to go straight to R1 universities or national government research labs after getting their PhDs. That there's so much we can do, whether it's education, advocacy, political engagement, the list goes on. And so that's my goal, is to pay it forward. I remember what it's like being a community college student and some of the struggles of not having access to certain resources or mentorship, and that's where I'm at today. More than happy to pass it on to the next panelist.
Thank you, Robin. Jennifer, would you like to go next?
Sure. And yeah, I'd just like to say thank you as well. This is a really great opportunity, and I'm excited to do this again with Robin and Diamond. We had a lot of fun at the Community College Day panel. So yeah, like was mentioned earlier, my name's Jennifer Wong-Ala, or Jen. I am originally from Oahu, Hawaii, born and raised in Waimanalo, a really small like coastal town. You could walk it in a few hours, but I love it and I miss it a ton. I'm at Oregon State University, about to finish my master's hopefully this summer and then continue on to get my PhD. Um, and yeah, it's been a really great journey. I came from Kapiolani Community College, which is kind of where I got my start. And really, I think going there really changed my life for the better. I initially didn't think I would go to college right after high school. There's a bunch of personal situations that happened, but a few great people really some steps to took some leaps of faith in me, even though they didn't really know me, specifically Auntie Keolani Noah, for those of you who might know her. And it really just changed my life for the better. And I'm eternally grateful for her and a lot of other different individuals. And yeah, now I'm here in Oregon studying, going to grad school, which I don't think I ever would have imagined doing if you asked me like 10 years ago where I would be in the future. So very grateful and privileged to be where I am at today.
Thank you, Jen. Diamond.
Hi, everyone. I guess good morning from Hawaii. I'm born and raised on Oahu like Jen. I actually grew up right over the hill from Jen in Hawaii Kai. I also started at KCC. I decided to go to KCC, which is Kapiolani Community College, out of high school because I came from a really small high school that my graduating class was only like 40 kids. And so the thought of going to a university where there was like 200 people in a classroom really freaked me out. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to try community college. There's, a lot less people. There's a lot more local kids. I just thought it would be a better fit. And it was also a lot cheaper. I couldn't afford to go to the university because I was raised by a single mom and, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So KCC kind of was the only option that I had, but it was great. I got to meet people like Jen. That's actually where we first met, 10 years ago. And I think I never really thought I would be here doing a PhD. It was just through the experiences and the people that I met, starting from the community college days, that kind of made me think about it. Like growing up, I never thought about going into science, really. I never really thought about having the doctor in front of my name. But now it's like I wake up and I'm like, whoa, I'm here. How did I get here? What am I doing? So it's a real trip. But I'm grateful to be here. Just like Jen and Robin said, I'm really glad to and happy to continue the discussions that we had at SACNAS when it was here last year. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Diamond. So thank you so much for sharing your stories with our SACNistas. For our live audience, please feel free to submit your questions now via the Q&A feature. And so my first question, it's something to echo on what Diamond just touched. Why did you get into science? What was when did you find out that you want to do science? So Diamond, I guess I will ask you first. And then Robin and Jen, you can just jump in.
Sure. I guess I think I always enjoyed science. Like it was one of my favorite classes in high school and middle school. And I was kind of okay at math. And so I just kind of ended up in STEM. I had placed into like a trigonometry level class coming out of high school into college. And the group of friends that I had made in that math class were all like aspiring engineers. And so to study, we would go to this place called the STEM Center at Kapiolani Community College. And that's kind of where I got roped into this whole, like, you have to go into STEM, you're a Native Hawaiian student, you have to get your PhD. And I was like, whoa, I just came here for math help. But I think that's kind of how I ended up to where I am now. It wasn't always an aspiration to be a scientist. I think growing up, I wanted to be in musical theater, and I wanted to dance, and I wanted to teach dance and do all of these really different, more artistic types of things, which are still passions of mine. But I think now my career goals have changed to science.
Yeah, for me, I acknowledge now that I'm a nerd at heart. And the best way for me to explain or respond to that question is like using like nerdy scientific analogy. Like my life was like a meandering water system and going off different tributaries, but also the components of different soils and different layers and different ways in which water flowed through or how life flowed through me. At a very young age, I've always was curious about the world around me, and I would always ask questions. And I vividly remember like one time my mother was driving my dad to work, and we were on our way back when we'd always have to cross this bridge, is Richmond San Rafael Bridge. And I remember asking her one day, I was probably like in the fourth or third grade at the time, and I'd asked her like, how are we driving above water? And she said, I don't know, you're gonna have to ask the civil engineer. And I was like, I asked her what's a civil engineer. She's like, I don't know, you're gonna have to look that up. And mind you, this is before internet, this is before we even came close to having access to stuff like that. So I went home and pulled out the encyclopedia set from like 1988 that me and my siblings always used for schoolwork. And I was like, oh, civil engineer sounds pretty cool. And so there was that period in life where like I thought like I wanted to be an engineer as a young child, but as life happened and nuances of our environment happen, sometimes survival becomes priority over education. And that was the case for me. And I ended up finding myself in and out of a lot of trouble, especially during my teenage years. And consequently, barely graduated high school, didn't straighten up till I was 21. But like that analogy with soils, like there's so many different layers to a person and to this world that we're in. And I decided to go back to community college after dropping out a couple times. And similar to Diamond's story, I went to our equivalent STEM center at our community college. And I just remember everyone being welcoming there. And it really took me aback because I was so used to whenever I walked into privileged spaces, everyone flexes on each other. Like, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm from, or this and that. But everyone from our community college was from the same community. And so everyone knew everyone's background. Everyone knew what we've gone through just to walk into that privileged academic space. And I'll never forget, like, just like 2 weeks being in that program, some random person who was also in the program saw me walking to school one day. And later on, he's like, hey, man, hey, Rob, I seen you walking. He's like, let me know if you ever need a ride. We got you. Like, we're family. And that always stuck with me. So having that family and having those connections is what really helped me gravitate more towards science. Because even as a community college student, I was still unsure, reluctant. Like, I seen that I was good at math, which was cool, but I didn't know if that was a career that I could pursue. And very similar to Diamond, like I had the STEM center coordinator telling me, no, you need to go to do your PhD. Like, you got something special in you. And I just would always kind of brush that off, but here I am. I don't know how I got here, but here I am.
Wow, thank you for sharing, Robin. Jen, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. So I don't know. I guess growing up, I always enjoyed school. It was kind of someplace where I was like, this is something I'm like good at. And people, I think it was one place where I would get like really like positive attention. It would just be like, Jen's like even my friends would be like, Jen's our nerd friend, you know, ask Jen to do your homework. Like it was like the ongoing joke, but like kind of true. And I was like, that's fine. I like school. I'm good at it. You know, like this is the one thing, like this is mine. And so after I graduated high school, I was like, what am I going to do now? You know, I had some things going on. So I was like, I want to go into the medical field. You know, it's like one of the things I think growing up where it's either go into the medical field to be like a nurse, like a CNA, but never, you don't really think about like going into a profession like the geosciences or like oceanography. That I didn't really know that was a thing until I think starting my second year of college. And so I was like, I'm going to become a doctor. You know, I set my goals high. I was like, I'll become a doctor, medical doctor. I wanted to work with the elderly, be a geriatric doctor. And then I did this summer program, and it exposed me to botanists, marine biologists, and then oceanographers and geologists. And I was like, this is cool. Like, this is super cool. And I can get paid to do this. Like, sign me up. I was like super down. And then I still interact and really think a lot of the people I met that summer are really dear to my heart and have helped me along the way. Even now, I still talk to a lot of them. And now I woke up one day and I'm studying fish, like at fisheries oceanography, and I don't know how it went from working with the elderly to fish, but here we are. And now my family just calls me the fishy scientist, you know, which is, I think it's funny, but yeah, and I've never turned back.
Thank you, Jen. So we have thank you for sharing all these wonderful stories. We have a few questions that came up. One is, can you give a sense of your early years at community college, and how someone has changed your view towards moving forward in the great journeys you have taken? And also mention how much time you spent in community college. Whoever wants to go first.
I could go. I spent a significant portion of my undergraduate career in community college, partially because I dropped out of college, out of community college specifically, like 3 or 4 times. I think total year span though, I was in community college from 2007 to 2012. So by no means was it an easy journey, and by no means did I finish in that ideal 2-year time span. And to be quite honest and frank, like that 2-year thing is a very ideal time frame. Not many students can finish their requirements within 2 years and be able to transfer. That's just the nuances of community colleges typically being underfunded and not being able to offer coursework or the courses you need every semester. But my early days in community college, those were some of my best times. Dealing with much more explicit forms of structural racism and microaggressions that exist in these elitist academic institutions. And I'm not the one to hold anything back. I mean, UC Berkeley is one of the worst when it comes to how they handle and address issues with people of color or sexual harassment. The list goes on. And so there's not that sense of accountability that I felt when I was in community college, because everyone felt like family. And even though I think our campus at the time had like 20 or 30,000 students enrolled, everyone always knew each other. Everyone's like, oh, what's up? How's it going? And I really liked that. I really enjoyed that. And when I transferred to San Francisco State to finish my bachelor's, I didn't have that. I really missed it. So for those of you who are still in community college, like enjoy that, embrace it, love every moment of it, get the pictures, like build those memories and make them last. If you're a professor and you're tapping in and trying to get insight, help your students build those memories, help them recognize that this is just a brief, short period in their life. And before you know it, they may be in a PhD program and not knowing how they got there, because here we are.
I can go next. So I went to my community college for 3 years, and I joke with like me and a bunch of my friends who we all met there that I wish I could have just got my bachelor's there, because I agree with Robin. It was some of the best time of my life. You know, it was a lot of struggle with like coursework, and trying to figure out like how to be an adult while also going to school full time. At like such a young age. Like I lived on my own. I moved out of my house when I was like 17, right, like a year after I graduated high school. So I'm late born. But I was like, how do I manage this going to school full time while also taking having to work full time as well. So it was a lot to figure out, but I think it made me really grow as a person, and being at the community college just made that so much like easier of a transition for me, because of the like cheaper classes like Diamond was saying, and just the much more welcoming environment. I had a lot of different people help me to change my view towards what I'm going to, I guess, the path that I'm walking along right now. I think being out here in Oregon, like, you know, away from my home and the island where I grew up, it's like a lot of cultural differences, and also just being, I think the university I did my bachelor's at in Hawaii is also like a lot of other R1 institutions, still very white male dominated. But once I leave that institution, I'm home, you know, and I don't feel as isolated. But here in Oregon, I'm at the university and I'm a minority, and then I leave and I'm still a minority, you know. So it's that like I don't have that balance, but I've learned to, you know, like talk about it, and then also do things to help me hopefully slowly but surely change how things like are done, you know, and the culture surrounding myself, and others, and just, yeah, just try to find a balance between opening people's eyes to when they say certain things to me, but also not being entirely labeled as a troublemaker, which is a hard balance, a hard line to walk, because sometimes you cross it and other times you just like jump over it. So, you know, yeah, thank you.
Depends on the day, huh? Diamond.
I spent 2 full years at the community college, and then I spent another 2 years doing part-time at the community college and at the university, just because I don't know how it is across the US, but once you're enrolled in the university, if you can attend the community college classes for the cheaper price. So I was trying to take advantage of the cheaper prices as much as I could. And I also just felt more at home there anyway, like Jen and Robin said. I think your question was more targeting how you can get students interested in research from the community college level. And I think what was beneficial for Jen and I was that at the STEM Center where we started, they had a lot of opportunities for students to get paid to work in the STEM Center or to work on research projects that some of the faculty were starting. And so that kind of opened our eyes to what research was like while we were still in an environment where we felt safe. So once Jen and I went to the university, we looked for those opportunities where we could work and get paid and do some kind of research that was our own. So I don't know how it is at the College of Marin or any other schools, any of the other community colleges, but I think that might be the reason why I kind of stuck with it. The STEM Center was great in terms of giving us opportunities to get help in classwork, but I think that extra step of giving us opportunities to mentor other students and work with faculty and kind of learn the ropes and like how to write a paper, like a scientific paper, and like how do you wash bottles properly. Just like the very simple things in a nice, familiar, home feeling environment I think that's what sealed the deal for us.
Thank you. Next question I have, how did you integrate, no, I wanted actually to touch on did you feel like your culture, your language was a barrier challenge to you while you're at school? Robin.
So I throughout my K through 12 education, most definitely, yes. And a lot of that was just from the result of having educators there who, like, I consider now in hindsight, like parachute educators. They just came in to do like their 3 or 4 years. That way they could move on to a much affluent district and teach over there. I've even had a teacher in high school encourage me to drop out because she told me and my friends we were a waste of time. That was my English teacher. And that's not uncommon. Like those are the things we were dealt with. And so I didn't have a language barrier, but I definitely had a cultural barrier, because for many of us, we're living simultaneously in 3 different cultures, like trying to navigate these spaces and, trying to protect our own. And so that was difficult. But again, when I went to community college, and to quote like one of my mentors, Dr. Myra Padilla at Contra Costa College, math was the universal language. Math didn't need a particular spoken language for me to understand and to communicate. And I think that's where I was able to finally flourish. I had professors in community college that were there because they cared about students who were under-resourced and came from marginalized backgrounds. And that's a big reason why I want to be a community college professor, because my professors showed me through leading by example what it means to actually pay it forward and build a enterprise of people who are properly trained. And bouncing really quick on Diamond's response to getting students interested in science and research. We had similar program at Contra Costa College, and where there was funds available to provide internship for students. And I mention that now because I use my identity and my culture as not just a way to represent, but to also provide opportunities. And so through my community college, Contra Costa College, I was able to have an intern last summer work with me, and they were funded through the Center for Science Excellence STEM Center on the campus. And so those are ways you can make things happen on your campus, keeping that network of alumni and having that representation pay itself forward.
Thank you. Jen, Diamond?
Yeah, I can go. So I do definitely feel that my cultural, and I guess, not language, but I think in Hawaii, well, we speak like Pidgin or Creole English, it's also called. And I think even going to my community college from my town, it was definitely like a change. But then that amplified when I went to University of Hawaii Manoa, where I think there are times, and even still there are times, where I feel like I can't just be myself. Like it's a very filtered version of myself that when I'm home or when I'm with friends from like high school, or even some college friends, I can just relax, which is like such a different feeling from when you're at work, or when you're taking classes and you have to put on this like filtered version of yourself. But I think slowly over time I've gotten a bit better of balancing it and just not caring anymore, because it's like I'm my authentic self, and if you don't like it or don't appreciate it, then like too bad, get lost, like kind of thing. And I definitely say that very confidently, but other times I'm just like, like, so it's a balance of like, how do I feel today? But here in Oregon especially, there's certain things like I won't say anymore that I think there's just too many like confusion compared to if I were home. Like in Hawaii, we'll like interchangeably use some words that are like Hawaiian, but if you grew up in Hawaii, you know them. And I caught myself doing that a lot here, and people just kind of look at me, or like I say things, and now I totally stopped. And then when I go home, my family's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I had to assimilate. Like, I don't think you understand, like, how these things, how these things go, because no one in my family ever moved somewhere else for such like a long period of time. So it's definitely a balancing act, like what is that called, that term that I can't think of right now, which would be a perfect time to, if either of you remember that term, please like chime in. When you have to bounce.
Code switching?
Yes, I code switch like constantly. It makes me tired sometimes, but with people I get comfortable with, I can get more comfortable. I can, be myself and be comfortable. But I think as there's more people who are not like the stereotypical like professor or like STEM or like graduate student, I think these things will hopefully decrease, or like normalize, like having students of color as graduate students, or, like non-cisgender graduate students, or non-binary. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add, I've had similar situations to Jen where for me it's more at conferences because I'm still in Hawaii, and I can still kind of speak that pidgin at home and in the classroom, and because the faculty here live here, they kind of can understand what I'm trying to say. I think it's more so when I go to conferences that I feel really uncomfortable, because I think, like, for us here, dressing up is like aloha attire, right? So it's the button down aloha shirt and like kind of a flowy dress with the same kind of print. It's not a suit and tie. Like, I don't have anything that's conference attire. So I already go into a conference feeling super self-conscious, and then having to be mindful of how I speak because I'm worried people won't understand what I'm trying to say, or they'll think I am not as smart as I should be. There's just insecurities that I think I have to get over. But so far, because I haven't really left Hawaii, it hasn't been too much of a challenge. But, as I progress through my degree, I'm traveling more and more. And so it's becoming a little more prevalent in my everyday life.
Thank you, Diamond, for sharing it. And some of you already mentioned that, but how do you navigate academia while still remaining true to your own identity and culture? Who would like to go first?
I'll go first. For me, it was strange at first, even when I went to community college, because I had been conditioned so badly in K through 12 education that we had to suppress our identity. And I had been conditioned so badly in our own environment that we had to suppress certain forms of our identity, things that don't come off as quote unquote masculine. And where I'm from, Richmond, California, it's known and it gets a bad rap for being, a very hood-like place. And so a lot of the young men, they feel compelled to carry themselves in a certain manner. And so in doing that, and in that process and being conditioned, it was difficult at first, but again, in my community college, and that the STEM Center, Center for Science Excellence, we were allowed to be our true unapologetic selves. It was more than a safe space. It was a brave space. It was a space where we could just sit down, talk with each other. Like, one moment we're talking about our physics problem, the next moment we're talking about things that went down the street that, and we're like, oh shit, like that was our homeboy, that was your homeboy too. Like, let's help him squash the beef. Like, and you realize, like, when you're your unapologetic self, you're doing more than just being comfortable and being relaxed. You're also allowing that opportunity to solve other issues and other problems beyond the scope of just science. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm very confident in the way I move and in these privileged spaces. So it's not that I don't care. It's more so that I'm more self-aware of who I am and how I'm projected to other people. So when I'm on a privileged space like UC Berkeley, I'm not gonna hide any form of my identity. Like, I'm gonna let my tattoos show. I'm gonna speak the way I speak, and that's just gonna be me. And my hope is that people who identify or resonate with my identity see that and express that as well. Like, I have a huge Mexican flag hanging over my window in my office that anyone can see when they walk into campus from the Hearst Avenue side. And that's just my way of expressing, like, hey, if you identify as the Latinx community, you have someone up here in one of those fancy little old school buildings, and they're putting it out there on full display. You're welcome here. You belong here, and you've earned your spot here. And don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. But I acknowledge at the same time, that's not easy for everyone to do. And I think we've had this conversation during the actual panel, that it's okay if you're not fully confident expressing your whole self, because we still operate in a society where sometimes we can only allow 10 to 15% of our full self to be shown. Sometimes that's for reasons of navigating safely, or reasons for our own personal safety, that we don't want forms of our identity being weaponized against us. And so I'm not advocating that people just jump all in 100% and fully express themselves however they feel comfortable, because some of it is trying to gauge the environment you're in. Like Jen had mentioned, being in Oregon, and that's a very different environment from where I'm at in the Bay Area. There's very different social dynamics happening there. So just, being self-aware of where you're at, but also being aware of how comfortable you are expressing your identity.
Thank you. Jen, would you like to share your experience?
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, how you integrate your culture, your identity into academia.
Yeah, so how I do that is, that's a great question. I think honestly, yeah, just trying to be myself, and like my friends and the people around me, I feel like a lot of the times it's just exposing them to me, to be honest. Like when I'm just kind of myself, or like when we talk about like my culture or Hawaii, like things will come up in conversation. And this is one of the things, like I think Hawaii is, like Pacific Islanders in general, like are very like a lot of people are like, ooh, like the Pacific, and so it's definitely one of those things that come up and people want to hear about it. But then when I talk about kind of like, like Hawaii's like any place else, bad things happen, you know what I mean? Like, and people look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, oh, what, you think we like take my surfboard to school and like, ride my dolphin? It's very, so when people hear me, say like, I just talked to my friend from high school, and our friend died because he got stabbed, which is very sad. But people are like, that doesn't happen in Hawaii. And I'm like, people get stabbed everywhere. Like, like there's no these things happen, and it's unfortunate, but like, it's not going to happen because we're on an island. You know what I mean? Like, so I think there's moments like that where people are very like, oh, like, because I didn't grow up very privileged. I was raised by like my auntie and my uncle, due to like different, like various reasons. And even when I say things like that, because that's like a part of made me who I am, being not, raised by my parents, and in like this, this a different like type of environment, people get uncomfortable, but I just let them like soak into it. And I'm just like, yes, we're all here. And I may be different from you in this way that makes you feel comfortable, but you're going to meet a lot more people like who are going to make you feel like this. And it's not just me, And so it's like one of those things where I just, sometimes I think I unconsciously do it too when we talk about like families, like it'll just kind of come up and people get weirded out. But yeah, I just try to try to just stand firm in like the things that I do, you know, like I have to get very kind of like boost myself up and be like, don't apologize, don't think about it anymore, like you did it and it's done, and like that's that. So yeah, it takes a lot of courage, to be honest.
And I'm sure it took some time to get to that level where you are now.
A lot of time. Yes, I've been in school for like 7-8 years, and you know, I'm still just like, you can do it.
Thank you. Diamond, feel free to think of the national conferences you have attended and where you had to bring your culture and your identity, or you felt like you couldn't.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. I think because there's not many Native Hawaiians in STEM, when we kind of try to express our research through our culture, we kind of stand out. And so one of the things that I struggle with in my department at the university is that there are no Native Hawaiian faculty. And within the grad student population, there's a handful of us. But, you know, because we're here and we're living with our families and trying to go to graduate school and still hustling for salaries, like we don't have a lot of time to help faculty who aren't willing to educate themselves on how to integrate Hawaiian culture into their own research. So you kind of get exploited as the one person who can do it for everybody. And it's hard for me, at least, to say no, because I want to see other people embracing this culture and wanting to work with community and looking at research questions from a community perspective. But then once you start doing it for one person, then more people ask you, and you kind of end up like never finishing your graduate degree because you're so busy helping all of these other people because of what your identity is. That's the hardest part for me. And so one thing that I've had to think about is, while not getting rid of my identity, making sure that I finish school so that I can be in a position of power, so that I can tell people, no, don't exploit the graduate students. That's not their job to be your Native Hawaiian person because you wrote a grant that you wanted to answer Native Hawaiian questions, but you didn't ask any Native Hawaiians about it. So I think reminding myself to finish the degree, get the PhD, so you can be the person to scold your colleagues rather than being a graduate student and having a hard time to, you know, just saying no. Like, yeah, that's where I struggle with the most. But I think being true to yourself is always, you know, never forget to do that. But also remember the long-term goal of, well, why are you doing this? So that you can keep timelines in perspective.
Thank you for sharing that, Diamond. We have one very passionate faculty on this webinar. So we have another question. What would you suggest to a professor not from a minority group that wants to break the ice of career opportunities in science research, personal development, to those students that have been marginalized and are approaching this community college life with skepticism? Keep in mind, our counselors only talk about classes and transfer credits. So, floor is open. Who wants to go first?
I can go if no one wants to play. You guys don't mind. So I think this is great to hear. First of all, I'm just gonna go back to it to look at it. So I think we actually mentioned this in our panel, but I'm gonna forget the wording. So if you guys remember exactly what we mentioned, but it was using your clout to like help others. I know clout is not the word, but yeah, using your connections to kind of bridge these like resources for your students. And a lot of people who have mentored me in the past, like a lot of them have really helped me by using their connections and their privilege and bringing opportunities for me, you know, or like introducing me to people. like at the University of Hawaii, who I have worked with, and even just like helping me to kind of like increase my professional development communities to be more competitive, you know, because academia and graduate school is extremely competitive. So I've really gained a lot from those professors, graduate students, postdocs, really like going out on a limb for me, you know. Sometimes they don't even really know me, other times they do, and they're willing to like stick their neck out and be like, hey, the student is a really great student. You know, I think, you know, introducing me about like for different opportunities, different scholarships, you know, even just like talking with someone who ends up being my, you know, my boss one day. And also just, I think not even just for career opportunities, but I think just listening, and being vulnerable, I think is one thing that really helps for a lot of students who come from like similar backgrounds as ours. Just knowing that, like, I think sometimes I still sometimes feel like that's, you know, like professors are like here and we're just like, oh, they're not like really like humans, even though, you know, we're all humans, but they're just like a different type until you see them out at the grocery store. And so I think just being like, just talking with them about like normal, like, you know, non-science things, non-academic things, like Tiger King is a big thing our lab has been talking about lately, you know, or like, what shows are you watching on Netflix? You know, just like being personable is really great. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
So I would love to take a response on this question. Thank you very much for asking this. I actually had a resource waiting by my side. That's why I had to turn my video screen off for a bit to go get it in anticipation of this coming, this question coming. But Jen, she mentioned a point that didn't immediately come to my mind until she had brought it up. The term is social capital when we use our network. And so similar to like when we have financial capital and we're able to afford students the privileges of and luxuries of having paid internships or paid jobs, we also need to be mindful in utilizing our social capital to benefit those around us, particularly students who come from marginalized backgrounds and identities who don't otherwise have that readily available to them. I know for me that has been the case throughout much of my academic and early professional career. And so I work really hard to pay that forward. You know, for instance, having that prestigious fellowship, the National Science Graduate Research Fellowship under my belt, that carries a lot of clout with it. And people tend to take you more seriously when you have awards like that, even though that shouldn't be the case in academia. Unfortunately, we live in a society where currency is publications and awards. But when you can use that currency to benefit those around you, for instance, at the most recent SACNAS conference, I had 4 or 5 students who I mentor at Contra Costa College come with me. And we were making our round through the exhibit hall, and I was letting all the different college recruiters know my background, and then open up the space and tell them, if you want more people like me, because I've told them, like, I'm already off the market, I'm in a PhD program, I'm stuck there. But if you want students who are just like me or actually way better than what I'm doing, take a look at these students who I'm mentoring right now. And you wouldn't believe the amount of attention that those students got simply from me using that as leverage for that connection. Or another example, when I was in community college, as unflattering as the story may sound, one night a group of us were studying for a physics exam, and we could not for the life of us figure out this practice problem with a Gaussian surface. I don't even know what a Gaussian surface is anymore. I just know that's what the problem had, with the Gaussian surface. And one of us had the bright idea, like, oh, let's go ask Dr. Conrad. And we're like, dude, it's like 9 p.m. We're not, how are we going to contact him? He's not going to answer his email, and then the exam's tomorrow. One of the sleuths on the team found his home address. It was an apartment complex. Me and my friend, who also used to have a interesting path, broke into the apartment complex because he wasn't answering his ring, and we were able to get to his apartment door, and he like looked at us confused, like, "How'd you get in here?" And we're like, "Don't worry about that. We have a problem." And he's like, maybe that's what that weird noise was. He didn't know, because no one visits him, so he didn't know what that ringing noise was. But he helped us. And the next day, instead of like, complaining to administration or something about students coming to his house or breaking into the apartment complex, or lecturing us about what we did, possibly being illegal or actually is illegal. He didn't chastise us or anything like that. He expressed that he's really proud of us, that we went through lengths of using our resources and using our skills to solve a problem like that. And I will never forget that. And I will never forget that was the same professor who told me when I was struggling and dropping out again that he expects more out of me, and he wants me to see me succeed. So being that advocate, using your social capital, it's huge. And as Jen mentioned, being vulnerable, and sometimes being vulnerable, and this is that resource I was talking about, is, oh man, can you see it? Let me stop sharing my screen, stop video. You'll see it more clearly on, not virtual.
It's because of the bear.
Yeah, there we go. So it's for white folks who teach in the hood, and the rest of y'all too. Book on pedagogy, on teaching students from different backgrounds, from marginalized backgrounds. I highly recommend that text. It's an awesome book. It's by Christopher Emdin, Emdin. You could find it at your local bookstores, Amazon, if you feel like supporting capitalism. But it's available, and I highly recommend it as a resource for any professor or any grad student who's considering teaching or TAing as well.
Thank you, Robin. Diamond.
I think if your question is related to having a hard time connecting with your students because you're not from the same community that your students are from, I think one of the cool things that I participated in at Kapiolani Community College was there were a lot of extra credit opportunities to work in, what is the English word? Lo'i, the taro patch. You could go to like different community work days and get like a form signed that says like, I participated in this 4-hour work day helping to pull weeds and like dig dirt and, basically upkeep a cultural resource. And for us, our professor who would always suggest these types of extra credit opportunities, she was always there. So I think by seeing her willingness to work in the community where we're from and caring about those cultural and like economic resources that are so key for like Native Hawaiian history, I think that was one of the coolest things for me. And then one of the other opportunities we got to do was we got to go to this like wildlife forest reserve where we got to plant trees. And it's like a really hard place to get to if you don't have connections. It's one of like the coolest experiences I've ever had. And I don't think I ever would have gotten to do that if it wasn't for her. And mind you, this is a white woman from, I don't know where she's from. I don't know, Dr. Kuntz, if you're ever going to watch this, but it was such a cool opportunity. And she's so passionate about birds and plants, and she knew everything about Hawaiian birds and Hawaiian plants. And it didn't matter to me that she was white. It was cool to just learn about it and to get out into the field and kind of see it in real life. So I think for me, the best way for me to feel comfortable and feel like I could go to this person confidentially or ask them for advice if I was feeling insecure, I think it's just a matter of like showing that you care, and it's not just for your personal gain, but it's because you care about your students wanting to succeed in whatever field they're interested in. So I think just kind of, take that extra 4-hour work day on Saturday to go work in the field a little bit. It definitely goes a long way.
Thank you, Diamond, for sharing. The time passes too quickly with you all. Before we get cut off, I really wanted to ask you this last question because I think it's very important. Please be concise. What is your advice to a current community college student who wants to be a scientist? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I would say find a professor or a mentor of some type who has a project that they're working on that interests you, and just ask them if you can work on it. You may have to do it for free for a little bit, but just kind of get your foot in the door. They may know of opportunities where next semester you can get some type of funding. But basically find a mentor, find a cool professor who you like, and also find the free money. That's how you're going to get through school.
I can go real quick. So I would just say that don't let anyone tell you you can't do it. And you will meet some people like that, unfortunately, but you're gonna meet some people who are amazing, and just surround yourself with amazing people and let the haters just ignore them. That's all I gotta say.
My piece of advice is continue to be curious, continue to be creative, and as Jen said, find your community. Join those organizations or clubs on campus. And typically those organizations or clubs on campus have those professors that Diamond was referring to, that are the cool ones, that are the advocates. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Robin, Jennifer, Diamond, for taking the time to share your personal journeys today. To our students and viewers, I hope this story showed you that there's not just one path through STEM. There are many paths with challenges, but also opportunities to learn, grow, and achieve your highest goals. As you find your path, we hope to be part of your journey. And so if you have any additional questions or would like to connect with our panelists or one another after this webinar, we invite you to continue the discussion in our online community college group. Follow the link on the screen or in the chat window and sign into your SACNAS membership to get started. If you don't have SACNAS membership, you can sign up for free at the membership.sacnas.org, and I hope to see you there. This concludes our webinar. Thank you all so much.